Hi everybody and welcome along to DR Sports Transfer Show, and there's only one story in town, only one place to start. I've got my man with me, Nick, in the house.
Man,
what are you saying, bro?
I'm here, man.
Now, I don't know where to start, but okay, let me relay a personal experience. So I'm in the gym today, and I get a call from no less than Flex and KG, and they're on the way back from the Man United game, so understandably they're cock-a-hoop.
Okay, yep.
So the man them start asking me about Mudryk. So he goes, now you've signed Mudryk.
Oh,
how you feeling? Is he going to be a legend?
My friends did exactly the same thing to me.
Yeah, the man them had me over, man, because I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, I'm in the gym. So I'm like, yeah, man, I can't wait for Mudryk to get started. We've heard a lot about this guy. He's desperate to come to Arsenal. From what I've seen, he looks like a good player. All the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. Then the man them start laughing and say, yo, you obviously don't know, but Chelsea have pretty much got him signed up. I was like, what? You're joking? Because I thought they were winding me up. Yeah. Transpires, man. I looked at my phone and I literally, as I'm talking to them, man, are sending me screenshots of
Fabrizio
Romano saying, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. I was flabbergasted, bro. But enough from me. What do you think?
I think that we are top of the table. I think that when we identify targets...
So you're glass half full.
Listen, it's not a question of glass half full. It's just we have to detach ourselves from these emotions, right? We all wanted. I nearly said Vlahovic. You know? We all wanted Mudryk, but this was a player that most of our fans had not heard of 2 months ago. So let's not. We got emotionally attached to him over the last month, and we can emotionally detach from him now. These guys should have. We're going to talk about how Arsenal operate in the transfer market, but these guys should have a main target, a second target, a third target, a fourth target, right? And everything that we've experienced with Vlahovic in the summer and many transfer windows before this should tell us this, right? So, okay, fine, that's happened and that's done. Now we should move on to the secondary target. That's just my position. It's not.
Do you think there is a secondary target?
If there isn't a secondary target in mind, then that's a massive failing. That's where Arsenal fail. You believe, because you've spoken before, that Arsenal's failure is not ponying up the money quick enough, and I believe that Arsenal's failure is not having a first, second, and third target. When you go into any negotiation, there needs to be a point at which you're willing to walk away. Otherwise, it's not a negotiation. You're being held hostage at that point. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's disappointing. I think the player will be disappointed as well. Not too disappointed he gets moved to London, play in the Premier League, but he obviously wanted to come to Arsenal, even when it was spoken about that Chelsea could be interested. He still made it clear he wanted to come to Arsenal, and it hasn't happened for him. But obviously, he's got a life to live, and good luck to him. But we just need to focus on what we do and not be too wrapped up into the minutiae of what other clubs do.
I do agree with some of that. However, I've got to say, from my perspective, this is a very disappointing day. All jokes aside, all wind-ups aside, I've had time to process it. After I left the gym and I had a coffee at a local coffee shop, made my way down to the studios. We're going to be covering the boxing a bit later on. And I've had time to process it. And I can't help feel a palpable sense of disappointment. And I'll tell you why. Because when we first heard about this guy, Mudryk, right, we were being led to believe, this was certainly the impression I got, is that Arsenal has identified this guy as their number one target. And the fact that we were going back and forth with Shakhtar for so long, we should have got the deal done. As time went by, Chelsea, they had their problems, both with form and with injuries. All of a sudden, they enter the equation. And now, out of nowhere, Chelsea have hijacked the deal. They've gazumped the deal, to use an old-fashioned term. And they would appear to have stolen the guy from underneath our noses. And it's even more disappointing, I might add, when you consider that we also lost out to João Felix to the same club. So I'm very disappointed, Nick.
I mean, the João Felix deal, the wages are insane for a 6-month period. He's a good player, but I don't know. I would have preferred Mudryk over João Felix personally. But like I said, I had big concerns. I wanted Mudryk, don't get me wrong. But when you first heard that we were interested in this Mudryk guy, when you first heard about him and you Googled him and you looked him up and said he's 21, 22, he's pretty quick, all this kind of stuff. What value would you have put on that player? What is the most amount of money that you would have been happy to part with for a player that has never played in a top 5 league, has some good performances in the Champions League, but isn't hugely experienced? It seems like a big gamble. Given that we've spent $6 million on the likes of Martinelli, 17 on Tomiyasu. You know, looking at and these guys are starters.
Yeah.
What value would you put on him?
Well, yeah, but that's difficult for me to answer, and I'm not copying out. What I would say to that is this. It's about market value, isn't it? It's what people are prepared to pay.
Yep.
And you're only worth as much as people are prepared to pay.
I agree.
So that is basically my answer.
I agree with you,
question.
and off the back of that, I believe that Chelsea have overpaid for this player.
Yeah, they quite possibly have.
So if we have our set plan, we have our Mikel Arteta 5-year plan, we're 3 years into that plan, we're top of the table, we have to stick to what that plan is. It's worked for us thus far. Why would we change it now? We've got this process of getting 3 or 4 players that are like the Man City kind of, what we've done before in the Man City strategy of getting, rather than getting one £100 million player, we've gone and got 2 or 3 £50 million players, Partey, Jesus, Zinchenko. You know, I think that we should continue with that and get 2 or 3 £50 million players rather than...
Your boy Pineda's putting a beat down on this guy.
That's your brethren. Do you know what I mean? But I think
Pineda's looking like prime time.
Yeah, he is.
Canelo in there.
He's got something to prove, isn't he? But look, I think that we've got our strategy, and I think that it's really important for us for long-term success for the club. And it might not feel like it now because it's the first time we've been this close to a title in a long time. But we have to stay the course and not change. Do you know what I mean? We go and spend 100 million, nothing's guaranteed.
I respectfully disagree.
We spend 100 million, and if he doesn't work out, like we spent 72 million on Pepe, if he doesn't work out, what do? We don't have the facilities to go and buy another 100 million pound player, and Chelsea do.
I respectfully disagree, and I'll tell you why. Listen, at the start of this season, no one could have predicted that we are in the position that we are in now. We are not within touching distance of winning a title, but the way the results are going and the way we played, the way things are opening up, we are realistic contenders for the title. More than realistic, I would say. We're actually favourites. That doesn't mean to say we'll win it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You've identified Mudryk as your number 1 target. Arsenal have made that pretty clear. Yeah. Now, I do agree with you that paying 90 million euros, 100 million euros represents an overpayment of the player. However, as we said before, it's market forces, yeah? Sometimes in life, if you desire something that much, we've all done it, you overpay sometimes. But then, you know what, once you've acquired it, you think, you know what, I paid a bit much for this thing, but you know what, I'm kind of glad I got it. Now, if we get Mudryk... I'm going to get to that, yeah. So if we get Mudryk, right, and we go on to win the league, that extra 10 million euros or 15 million euros that we so-called overpaid for will be seen by many as an investment rather than expenditure.
But, okay, so here's the thing. If you had the opportunity then, looking at the squad that we've got now, if you had the opportunity to get in, let's just throw some names out there generally, right? You have the opportunity for the same money as Mudryk to get, say, Declan Rice and Leandro Trossard, or Moises Caicedo from Brighton and, I don't know, Wilfried Zaha, right? You can get all of these players or Mudryk alone. Which one of those options do you think gives you a better chance of winning the league?
No, with respect, that's hypothetical speaking.
Of course it is, but you're doing hypothetical speaking. You're doing hypothetical speaking by saying, what if we get this Mudryk guy and we win the league?
I'm saying, because it's more realistic, the suggestion that I made than the one you made.
Not at all,
Because we are...
Tielemans' contract is up. Tielemans' contract's up in 6 months. If we've got 100 million to spend on Mudryk, Trossard wants out and Brighton are happy to sell him. They want him gone. They would take 50 million for Leandro Trossard. And
they probably won't now. They probably want more now.
Leicester would take way less. They've got 6 months of his contract. It's 100% realistic to take that 100 million euro and redistribute it into getting 2 or 3 players that could get us over the line. So,
okay, let me ask you another question.
Okay.
And I want you
didn't answer mine, but that's okay. He's swerving. He's swerving.
I'm saying that you are projecting forward in a hypothetical sense.
We're both projecting forward.
To me is unrealistic.
This whole segment.
The scenario I presented to you is more realistic than
why is it unrealistic? How?
To me.
Tielemans, in the summer we were £5 million off of the valuation for Leicester. That's a very realistic signing. Leandro Trossard is one of the top wingers outside the top 6 in the Premier League right now. He wants to leave and Brighton want him gone. That's not unrealistic.
Yeah, but
okay, let's do away with Zaha.
No, but the difference with Mudryk is he was their number 1 target.
I understand.
I think that's fair to assume.
I appreciate that.
They had highlighted, I can almost imagine a scenario where in their weekly meetings or whenever they meet, Arteta's made it clear. This is the guy. They've drawn up a list of targets, and they said, this is the guy we want. Yep. And he's explained, he's given his rationale as to why he wants him.
Correct.
The pace, the skill, the dribbles. He can play in different positions, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So they've said, right, okay, we're going to make a concerted effort to go for this guy.
Yep. But when
don't get me wrong, they have made an effort.
When they say concerted effort, by the way, there must be a cap. In that conversation, they would say there is a cap to which, do you know what I mean? We're willing to go to this. Do you know what I mean? There would absolutely be a cap to which they're willing to go. It wouldn't just be endless.
Down. Pineda's on the verge of a stoppage win.
Damn, I didn't even see that.
Actually, while we're here, let me just
ahead.
read out some talks there. Some chats here, sorry. Right.
Tell me if you agree with me or Laurie, basically.
It seems quite mixed here. More realistic because you actually made a bid for Mudryk. Stop being in denial. As an Arsenal fan, I feel disgusted, shambolic. I want to play for Arsenal for passion, not just money. So the comments seem quite mixed. But listen, man, I'm going to say, man, I'm disappointed because maybe it's because it's coming off the back of us not getting João Felix.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, man, I think the number one thing that could prevent Arsenal from winning the title this season is the fact that we don't have the strength in depth. I think we can all agree that we need to strengthen the squad.
I agree.
The fact that Mudryk was being earmarked as the player that we really want, our number one target, and the fact that we haven't got him, maybe it's still a little bit raw, man, but this is twice in a week now.
I honestly think
two times in a week, Nick.
As a fan base, we're very emotional, myself included, and we're super passionate. We want players that are going to come here and play for the badge, not just for money. And I think that watching his antics on social media and watching how much he seemed to love the club and really want to be at Arsenal is what makes this more painful. That's why it feels the way that it feels, and that's absolutely
that's
true.
A good point.
But if you take the emotion out of that, this is still a player, a £100 million player, who's 21, who's never played in the top 5 league. That you cannot tell me that there is not a player out there for less than €100 million that can do what this guy does.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but where is it?
Or close.
Where is it?
That's the club's job. That's their job. They can't.
But are you confident that they have a plan?
No, I'm terrified.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Myself, to be honest with you.
And the other thing that I would say as well, Nick, right, and tell me what you think about this. I have this argument with a lot of people, and you know, people talk to me in terms of 3-year plans, 5-year plans, blah, blah, blah. And I always say to people, I don't think Premier League football, anyway, is a long-term project like that. You've seen
it's medium
other
term.
clubs.
It's medium term, right? 3 or 4 years.
It's a results-based business. Everything is based.
Depends on how much.
Look at what's happening at Everton now. Look at what's happening at Chelsea. Look at what's happening at Liverpool now. Look at Liverpool.
We could be on this forever.
It's a short-term business.
We could be on this for all night, but the reality is we have to make plans based upon how much the club is going to spend. The club is not going to spend 250, 300 million, 400 million like other teams are going to. When Arteta first joined, this is the last point I'm going to make, when Arteta first joined at Christmas 3 years ago, that first window in January, he got Cedric on loan, Pablo Mari on loan. So if you're looking at someone like Eric Ten Hag, who's just gone to Man United, they spent about 150 million. And 5-time Champions League winners, and Anthony coming in, Champions League experience, and all this different stuff. We just don't have that luxury. So we have to be realistic within the confines of what we got. And we have to get from 8th into Europe, and then from Europe into the Champions League. It's a process. Do you know what I mean? And that can't get done from the team that he inherited. It can't get done in 2 windows. So
I must say, Nick, you articulate it very well, and
come on, man.
It's almost cathartic what you're saying, because I'm still. I must admit, and I'm a man, I don't get overly emotional. I'm like I call old school fan. I tend to try and look at things in a rational, responsible way. But I have to say, bro, that I'm disappointed.
I'm disappointed.
Twice
Listen,
in a week.
I'm disappointed as well. I don't want anyone to think that I don't care. Yeah. I'm disappointed as well. The only thing that gives me some comfort.
Yeah, you wrap up.
The only thing that gives me some comfort is that I personally had a little bit of. I had some doubts about the fee being quite so high, and I genuinely believe that he would have been more successful at Arsenal than at Chelsea, because they just seem to have no plan, no strategy, and it's very scattergun. But we can find other players. That it moves on. We didn't get Vlahovic, we got Jesus. Life goes on. Do you know what I mean? And it's raw, but that's where we're at. Do you know what I mean? And we just have to identify the next targets and move very quickly. We may even have to overpay now because we didn't get those 2 targets.
No, this is it.
But we'll overpay to a smaller extent. And that's what it is.
You're so right, because clubs are going to know now that we're even more desperate. So
this is it.
I mean, Trossard, that people are talking about now, don't be surprised if they put some ridiculous price on him. Right, okay. I'm going to wrap this up completely now. What I would say is this, listen, man, it is what it is. We missed out, it would appear, on the 2 targets that we had earmarked, and that is disappointing. However, like you said, we have to trust in Arteta and the board that they will find viable alternatives. I just hope that we're not looking back in 6 months' time or whenever it is and saying this was the day that we lost the title. I just hope that doesn't happen.
For sure. But yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. And we're out.